Is this vehicle behind me one of the new heroes of the German automotive industry? Today we are driving the all-new Mercedes CLA. Is it one of the most efficient electric vehicles out there? And since this one will also come as a petrol hybrid, how much potential is there for the internal combustion engine version? We'll clear all of these questions here with Thomas Nautogefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go with the all-new CLA generation. This will be one of the heroes of the German automotive industry next to the BMW iX3. So Mercedes and also BMW coming with an all-new electric platform, which again, in this case then, will also house a combustion engine. So it's really important that this vehicle will work. And Mercedes so far says that they are very happy with the pre-orders. Let's see how this one continues. In the front we can see this grille with the illuminated stars. This one is available for the EV. The combustion engine version would have a more open grille, but also with the tiny star pattern there. This color here, a real Thomas blue here for today, is called Klarblau in Germany. It's called sheer blue in some other countries, and it's called sapphire blue in the UK. I'm not sure if there are any more other descriptions for that, but it's a bright blue. It looks pretty cool. One design thing is definitely that it has kind of like two faces with the grille here, and then here this light strip that goes over there. That is, I mean, not my favorite thing about the vehicle, but so far customers don't seem to be disturbed by that. Matrix LED is an option, and here the daytime running light is in a star pattern, so to speak. No wonder they are not allowed to make it like really corporate identity CI, because the regulator said that it's not like allowed to have the daytime running light exactly how the corporate identity is, which is nonsense regulation. Yeah, but sometimes it's the way it is. The length here is 4.72 m or 186 inches. It's available here as the sedan, and as you've just recently saw on our channel maybe, it's also available now as the shooting brake version, the estate form, which also looks very cool. Then here wheels from 17 to 19 inch. These here are in between. 18 inch, maybe a good deal between the looks and still having some riding comfort. Gets a standard steel suspension, no adaptive suspension available whatsoever. Here chrome frames around. You could also get black frames. You can get an AMG Line package. This one is already an AMG Line package, by the way. Then you can add like a dark package, a night package for that to make some make some dark accents all over the vehicle. And there's an AMG Line Plus, which would add like a small black spoiler here on top. Not sure if that's really necessary. And you also have to bear in mind, CD value is at 0.21 in the ideal setup with 17-inch wheels, which is excellent for the aerodynamic efficiency. However, the AMG Line Plus, with bigger wheels, with a spoiler and so on, really makes it worse. So AMG Line Plus, if you want the best range, don't go for the AMG Line Plus. It's also interesting to know. This is here the CLA 250 Plus in the EV version, the most efficient one. Rear-wheel drive is at 6.7 seconds in the acceleration figure. Then there's the 350, which is at 4.9 seconds in the acceleration figure. That one is then the all-wheel drive version. And on the combustion engine side, you will get a 1.5 liter four-cylinder engine. Would have wished for 2 liter of displacement at least, honestly. Different horsepower specs, and also all-wheel drive or front-wheel drive. So the combustion engine version then will be front-wheel drive. That's also a major difference. Very interesting, and we'll keep you updated with that. It's a 48-volt board net. That means there will be some electric moments, and Mercedes says that in the reverse gear it will in most cases drive all electric, even with the mild hybrid petrol. It's very interesting, right? Here the light strip goes all the way through in that design. Very interesting. It really looks like a seamless raindrop. That's why it's also working that well from the aerodynamics. And here AMG Line has this black contrast in the lower part. Let's take a look at the front, because we still have the Frunk to cover, at least in the electric version. 2 times the unlock there on the interior, and then you can directly open it without an additional unlock. That's a practical thing. Huge Frunk in the front, really, with these 100 liters. This is just like a cover you leave in there. Charging cable, or there's even like luggage in the front possible. No covering here at the inside from there. I would suspect that the combustion engine version will have a dampening then in there. But of course, we'll keep you updated with that. There will also be a very interesting interior difference between the EV version and the combustion engine coming up later on. EV specific, you either get an 58 kilowatt hour battery, or flip the numbers around, 85 kilowatt hour is the bigger one. The small one, LFP chemistry. The bigger one that's already available, NMC chemistry. That was also super quick in charging, 10 to 80% in 22 minutes with a 350 kilowatt DC peak, 800 volt architecture, so that's pretty cool. AC charging is 11 kilowatt or optional 22 kilowatt at a later stage, so not from the start of the orders, but somewhat later when the shooting brake is also available for purchase. And also interesting, the 400 volt charging, which will be relevant when you charge at a 50 or 100 kilowatt charging station, which is not yet 800 volt. At this moment, at the start, it cannot do that. And later on, also end of 2025, they will make that an option, or maybe beginning of 2026. We have to see when they're ready with that. It will also be an option in the configurator that it also can charge at the 400 volt charging station. Depends on if that's needed for you. In Germany, there are some cases where that might be useful, for example, in front of supermarkets and so on, where they don't have the big fast charging stations, but also already DC charging stations, which are not that quick. Yeah. So far, there was no 800 volt vehicle which cannot do that. And Mercedes says, yeah, our customers will either charge super fast or at home at the wallbox. But at least they will soon offer the option, and if it's relevant for you, then you should wait for that. The key, open it, door handles pop out like this, door closing sound. It's actually pretty solid considering these are frameless doors. That's very interesting. And of course, this typical coupe-like thing is that we have the frameless doors. Instead of the doors, good build quality here with the leatherette covering, then the contrast stitching. Here you can get this white interior. I think it does look amazing, also fits to the blue car, but you can get also more subtle colors that is available. Good step forward that these here do give a moving feedback again. This has been updated. However, the seat heating button has been removed. I did like that function there, definitely. What about you? And two window levers, they are cool. They look a little bit like a whale fin or something like that. But then for accessing the rear windows, you have to press this button like in VW ID models. Yeah, Mercedes says it's a space reason. They didn't want to make this element longer, that you have the ergonomic grab handle here and not further back in the vehicle when you sit on the inside. That's their reason, they say. And then some hard pack here, but we have some rubber ground, at least that's like a sunglass cover, doesn't fly around that much. Mercedes entry badge, it's also illuminated by the way at night. AMG Line is here for the floor mats and also for the steering wheel. It's AMG Line exterior and interior. In the AMG Line you also get the steering wheel with the two spokes here, otherwise it's one spoke. Contrast stitching, no animal-free material available yet, supposed to come at the later stage, they say. And you can see hashtag capacitive BS all over the steering wheel. But as we've recently seen with the shooting brake, the turning jog comes back, the real one, the metal knurled one, and also the sedan will soon receive it. Here, the seat, this is a sport seat. AMG Line standard, microfiber interior, leatherette on the exterior, and looks good, feels good. The base comfort seat would be a little bit more open. Maybe that will deliver more comfort, because when you take a seat directly, it's fine, also for tall adults. It's a little bit narrow, and I say that on long journeys, maybe not the best comfort for tall persons. If you're a little bit smaller than me, it might not be an issue at all. And I'm looking forward to compare, test soon the comfort seat, if this one indeed is more comfortable. This one, of course, looks cooler. You also have the adjustment here of the head restraint. You can put it a little bit more forward, for example. And again, this can be bought also without the white color. I've seen it in the UK configurator. People go for the AMG line, but then directly deselect this white interior and just make this here black. Stay with the microfiber inside, but then outside all the way black. And this is then the most bought option.
We will
very
see
interesting.
what we have in our car.
Yeah, we will see what we maybe buy for our vehicle. Not that I say we buy in the CLA, maybe something completely different. And then we will have a surprise for you which vehicle it will be and also which seat color it will have. This will be very interesting.
Give a guess now.
You can already take some guesses which will be our next private vehicle and also which seat colors we will have on the inside. This will be very interesting. Then also here the switchgear, by the way. So here is for the wiper controls, feels really nicely. Cool air turbine vent here on the left side already. And on the right side here is for parking, but also somewhat like an ignition button of the vehicle. And then forward, backward for changing the recuperation, and down, drive, up, reverse. And that's actually quite intuitive. And there's a very, very smooth process for the steering wheel adjustment. Manually, I'm totally fine that it's manual. And like, it's almost like a, in German we say like, schwimmend gelagert. Listen and repeat, schwimmend gelagert. It's more like a swimming, how would you literally translate it? Like a swimming adjustment, something like that. But you know, probably floaty, smooth adjustment. That's probably, yeah. And exactly like this movement just feels really, really nicely. So these are some of the...
in 10 minutes.
Yes, there's always Leah is complaining, this car nerd just talks about that. But these are some of these features. They just, you know, it happens so often in a car that you adjust something and it always gives you this kind of feedback. And this is very important to me. Welcome to the cockpit of the new CLA. And then here you have a 14-inch screen, 10-inch instruments, and either like this with this star pattern. I think it's at least a nice solution. Not like the recent Audi models where if you don't go over the passenger screen, you just have like a black panel there. Here at least they use it for an integration of ambient lighting. Optional then a 14-inch passenger screen here, which is not such a thing in Europe or US, more in China. In China they will launch the CLA sedan long wheelbase, so it has like even more space in the rear then. Nice integration also of the turbine style air vents. They also have a cool clicking sound, and that ambient lighting also is integrated all over the vehicle. It's really nicely done also. Here you can also get different decor elements instead of high gloss black. There will also be like a matte wood paper style, a bright one with matte finish available. That one will be my favorite. And here cup holders can be pushed out, but is rather for coffee cups than for stronger bottles. Here, inductive charging pad. Underneath is also, you can see this ventilation there. It's interesting that it's just at the top there. Wonder if that really cools the whole smartphone then. And then you have the dynamic select button here where you can switch through the driving modes. Okay. No. There we go. Now we can switch them through. And indeed, to turn the ignition on and off is here at the park button. Like the P is itself, like here, this on-off button, like with the PC or something like that. You press here and then you can put the ignition on or off, and it's the park button in itself, basically, which is actually quite decent and intuitive idea. Why not? The new voice assistant feature, by the way, is a combination of Google Gemini and for the recognition, and then the information comes from ChatGPT and is actually pretty reliable. Hey, Mercedes.
Yes.
How many inhabitants does Copenhagen have?
As of 2025, Copenhagen has an estimated population of approximately 1,400,740 residents. The city has experienced a growth rate of around 0.69% over the past year.
Thank you. So
it goes without saying.
Oh. So you can, you can even have some interaction with it. It's, by the way, a thing with the AI that people tend to be nice to chatbots and also like thank chatbots for something and so on. And I have the impression that is a good thing, you know, and maybe then the machines will not turn on us at some point. And so better be nice to the chatbots. I think it's a good strategy, definitely. Then here, soft enough for your elbow, and then split opening, some space on top, you can slide it, and you have more space underneath. And overall, the thing is that I think the cockpit quality has been improved in comparison to the very first car I saw. Everything looks and feels pretty nicely. You can maybe argue a lot of high gloss black here. I think the only main disadvantage is that it's not that spacious for tall people. That's maybe the main criticism point of this car. Other than that, it's actually pretty cool. And when we now get the new steering wheel and so on, I'm actually pretty happy about that. Also the glove box falls down smoothly. Also when there's content inside, it's actually not too big, but I think overall okay. There we go. And then the seats, again, from the materials, a good microfiber. There's also Artico high-grade leatherette, a full Artico available, or MBTEX. On the UK market, for example, you either get this in the AMG line, most then de-pick the white and go for the black leatherette on the outside, or the comfort seat is available in full Artico. German market has more offerings and so on. We'll see about the US market then later on. And the headroom in the front, by the way, with 189/602, yeah, no problem, enough left. And interesting here, drive reverse, but here forward or backward to change the recuperation levels. Also intuitive, it's actually quite cool. It says here described on the top part. So this would be more or less recuperation, and here towards the one pedal driving. Driver POV, once again with the hashtag capacitive PS buttons, but yeah, if you order at a later stage, you will get back the switch, and then here also then the turning jog again. Instruments, you have this nice classic view. You also have the assistant system view if you want that. Not sure who would do that. And some, yeah, the consumption data is then here. And you can also go for a map view, and you also have the satellite view then here. This is from the car internal GPS. And you also get this head-up display, main infotainment unit. This is how the Apple CarPlay integration looks like. Not the fullest screen, so to speak, is always a discussion and with Apple and so on, and between them. Ambient lighting changing is here. There we go, and you see it also reacts really, really quickly. The climate changing is here, is on the first layer, but very small, so you don't hit that directly, maybe in any situation. And for seat heating,
Can you say it again, please?
The hell? And then here,
Unfortunately.
thank you. And then here for the steering wheel heating and for the seat, you can see here also the seat heating activates the steering wheel heating automatically. Can I also press here? No, that doesn't work. So this is then the second layer, so to speak. And there's just one layer and no second layer, just second layers. Here the satellite view from the main infotainment unit, and then here the vehicle controls and so on. To deactivate this speed chime warning, by the way, it doesn't show, maybe it shows when I put in the gear. Yeah. So I have to put in the gear, and then it appears here on the top, and this is the way you can deactivate the speed chime.
This is my job.
This is usually a Lia's job. So when I'm driving, she's automatically deactivating that, and oh wait a minute, this car doesn't have it. No, Leah already deactivated it for me. And here another possibility, press and hold the mute button. This also deactivates or activates this speed chime thing again. And underneath the middle console you can see two more USB-C chargers. You could even put the cable from underneath then to the top here. There's like a small hole that would be possible. Now we're coming to one of the things which is maybe like not ideal for this car, and that's the rear space. I'll soon show you what I mean. First of all, this is very well built here with nice leatherette covering, stitching, and here also with the white interior. I love that, but you don't have to go for the white. Good build quality. The window doesn't go down too far though, and also the door doesn't open too wide for putting child seats in and out. And then this clip here for the ISOFIX is also, you have to pay attention that you don't put your finger in there and it's getting stuck. And then also it doesn't just fold open, you have to have it flying somewhere around. Not ideal. However, the quality of the materials here is really nice. I love the white interior, honestly, but you don't have to go for it, as I said. Then here, some space inside here. Couple is not adaptive. Here for the smartphone, you can also just fold the ski hatch. This is also possible. Yeah, you have to press it pretty deep in there. And then in the middle part, two USB-C chargers, illuminated, plus pretty cool turbine vent style here for the rear vents. Also nice to have them. Yeah, and then we come to the okay things of this vehicle. That is, I can sit as tall adult. Yes. when there's also tall end in the front, but barely from the legroom and barely from the headroom. The shooting brake would have a little bit more headroom in the rear, if that's relevant for you, like the estate style, if you can get that one in your country. And then also my knees are really high because my feet are standing high. Again, the sandwich building style, while also like Tesla is using the fixed glass roofs. Well, you have the battery in the floor, then it builds high on the interior, and then you have to save headroom, and then you make a thin glass roof to gain some headroom back again. The disadvantage is it always gets hotter when it's really, really hot in summer, no matter what you do. It's just always the case. However, this one, the standard one, no fixed roof available, like no fixed closed roof available, always the glass roof, and an optional electrochrome roof. This will give you better heat resistance, so to speak, when you have it, closed with this digital shade, so to speak. It's just the difference that in the shooting brake, which we've shown to you, there you also have this star pattern. And this is supposed to be exclusive for the shooting brake and will not come in the sedan here of the CLA, they said, at least at this moment. And also important, when you go for the petrol version, here there will be some foot garages which are a little bit deeper. So this then will set my knees a little bit lower in the combustion engine version in comparison here to the all-electric version. Now we take a look at the trunk or the boot at 405 liters. Here fits in with the height also vertically with the trolley. The width here is 1.40 meters, a little bit less honestly. And then here the standard length is exactly 1.40 meters, and the height, this is then at about 19 inches or 48 centimeters. Of course, more flexibility than with the shooting brake, the estate version. And loading through, you can see here, you can fold them individually as well, but you have to go around for that. And this is here about 1.80 meters or 71 inches. Now it's time to start driving the Mercedes CLA for the very first time. We'll tell you everything you need to know in general about the Mercedes CLA, general CLA. And of course the EV specific things, because it's the first time we have the possibility here to drive the EV directly. At the later stage, of course, we can also directly give you an insight of the petrol engine as soon as available. And we'll start here with some city traffic. We'll soon also go to the motorway. What does come to my mind directly? It drives very smooth in an acceleration and braking sense. The suspension is, I would say, rather sporty. We have the combination here of the base suspension, which is just the base suspension as it is. There's just this one base suspension. And we have 18-inch wheels mounted. And I would also recommend not to go for the 19-inch wheels, because then the ride is even stiffer. But still, what do I mean with the smooth driving experience? How the steering is laid out, how it does deliver the power when you slightly hit the throttle pedal. And here the recuperation setting, you can set it yourself how you like to have it. Here with the shifting lever, auto recuperation. That means automatically comes to a stop, for example, when there's a car in front of you. Somewhat like a cruise control when the adaptive cruise control is not even activated. And then I can push forward for no recuperation or intelligent recuperation again, or can pull for normal or strong recuperation. The strong recuperation is one pedal. That means going on the throttle, and then when I go off, it directly brakes the car really, really hard and also comes to a full standstill. Considering I have passengers, I rather tend to go with no recuperation or the normal recuperation, the slight one, and then rule the rest of the braking process myself with hitting the brakes. This can also be very finely dosed with this vehicle. It is remarkable that the steering feel is, it's not imprecise, there is always something happening, but it's laid out to be very, very soft. It also depends on the driving mode. For example, in the sport mode, you have more resistance, and I've also set the individual mode that everything else is on normal, but just that the steering has more feedback. I like that, then the steering has a little bit more feedback. Leah prefers it when the steering is pretty light, but that's totally a matter of preference. Once again, since this is a normal base suspension here, the suspension is not reacting on the driving mode change. It's more the steering and the throttle input, for example. Here in the city traffic, it's also relatively silent. I'm looking forward to the noise installation when we are on the motorway very, very soon. But the whole driving experience, is very effortless and smooth and so on. Yes, there are more sophisticated suspensions out there. They want to have like a distance between this compact to mid-size segment and then to the bigger vehicles, for example. That's the thing. But overall, it still delivers a sophisticated driving experience. And as I said earlier, also in the interior part, in comparison to the very first time we saw the CLA, they also upgraded the interior look and feel and so on. And that also works while driving. Also, for example, when you hit the turning indicators or when you change something of the wipers and so on, how the stuff is feeling, this is actually pretty cool. Changing the temperature while driving, I think it's relatively far away here. It's also pretty small, even though it is in the first layer. I think it's not ideal. Yeah, so some of the user interface stuff could be better, I would say. But at least it's good that the voice activation is working very well. So I really had earlier the thing that I was wondering, wait a minute, how do I change the recuperation settings? And then I just did the following. Hey, Mercedes.
How can I help?
How to change the recuperation setting?
To change the recuperation setting, use the direct select lever in transmission position drive. Push it forward to reduce recuperation or pull it back to increase it. The current level is displayed on the driver display. Please make sure to refer to the owner's manual for confirmed information.
And that's actually a pretty cool thing. So as I said earlier, the recognition done with Google Gemini and then the information with ChatGPT, and it's both possible. I can ask for general information.
Apologies, but I ran into an issue.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't know that right now.
Yeah. I think the feedback channel was still open for my voice. Should have cancelled it before, actually. Yeah, so the cool thing is general information is possible, also about the city. If you wonder about, what's that building and so on, this is all possible, but also car-specific information. The only thing that is not possible is that you change some driving behavior things. Like you cannot change the driving mode with the voice recognition. That's a safety issue, actually. Here, once again, to this steering thing. Yes, I've set it in the individual mode now on sport. It's natural, but it's not too progressive, but overall fine. As I said, tuned on a rather soft note. When the road is even, suspension is really perfect. And you have to say, Mercedes, at least from my experience, builds very good suspensions. We always have it that even the base suspensions are really nice. Just when you have like really fierce potholes, then you feel that you don't have like any adaptive setting or something like that, but that's overall fine. Here also, when I approach the traffic light, I think really finely dose the brake once again, so that's pretty cool. Being in the EV, you have always... Leah tries out the AC.
Huh?
Yeah, this is also a good example of like I'm now. So what did you want to do and what?
To 22 degrees on my side.
22 degrees on your...
But now it's stuck.
But now it's stuck at high?
I don't get it.
Okay. Now we have...
okay.
I was like
turned
the max mode.
Yeah.
So you want to have 22 at your side?
Yeah, a little bit warmer, or 18, 20 is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see, the user interface is not... gotta learn some things about that. Yeah, that's the thing. It's not always intuitive, let's say. We can also try either saying like, hey, Mercedes again, or like here pressing the button here and then change temperature on the driver's side to 21 degrees.
I'm setting the temperature on the driver's side to 21 degrees.
Yeah, but then the question is like, how often do you want to have these long conversations with the car instead of just changing stuff? And then you always have to cancel that again. Otherwise, they will be like, sorry, I didn't understand it. So, but overall, I think the voice recognition is working very well and pretty flawless overall. And I have to say, I really enjoyed driving it. The car is fun to drive. It feels agile. It feels small. Also, in a way, we talked about in the interior, that sometimes feels a little bit tiny on the interior. Narrow seats, seating is low because of the efficiency and so on. So you do feel that you're driving a small car, but then again you think, wait a minute, it's 4 meters 72 or 186 inches long. That's not a small car. But when we sit on the inside here, it does feel small indeed, you know, also like here with the knees and so on. That's all this aerodynamic concept, you know, which puts the car a little bit lower and so on. That's, of course, always, let's say, a goal conflict. You know, you want to achieve something, at the same time you have something that maybe has to be countered by something else then, and so on. Yeah, but overall, I have to say, in city traffic, it drives really relaxed, silent. At least I tend to have this mode off, because what you can also do is get into different sound modes. So for example, now, and I think in sport mode it should be more audible when I'm here in this sound mode, and a little bit of. And Leah always says that she prefers to have some kind of feedback as a passenger. For me, then there's here vivid flux, for example. It's usually just when you hit the throttle. It's more like. And then there's roaring pulse. This is the most low frequency setting when you. No, I probably should not try that here on a traffic light. Soon when we accelerate again. The roaring pulse is more like this, not really combustion engine sound, but a more low frequency. And these three modes have been introduced with the Mercedes EQS a while ago. And now there are three more modes: serene breeze, fractal fusion, and granular fuzz. Granular fuzz? So
In Germany, it's Furz.
yeah, Furz is
Yeah.
is for fart,
Yeah.
you know, farting is furzen.
That's why I'm laughing, yeah.
Yeah. So the granular furz, the granular fart. So first of all, the roaring pulse. And then let's try the serene breeze.
Oh, wow.
It's like it's a piano player. What the hell? Let me just see where we have to go with the GPS. So yeah, you can see you can play around with that car quite a lot. It's really like someone is playing music when you hit the throttle pedal with this serene breeze there. And then we're soon coming to the granular furz, or the granular fuzz, the fractal fusion. Let's see. Okay, that's
It's
also
a
more like
normal
EV sound.
yeah.
And then granular fuzz. Let's now see. That really sounds like a furz.
Oh,
A little
open,
bit. Oh, there's an open charging port there. Is it? No, it's actually not an electric taxi for this. Yeah, petrol, yeah. The granular fuzz sounds a little bit like the roaring pulse, a little bit more like, yeah. But honestly, my opinion on that is usually I leave it off because it's an EV. If there would be like a fun moment in Alpine roads, I would really like to turn on like V8 naturally aspirated engine, 5-liter sound. You know, that would be cool, right? But I'm not sure if someone will use that. Maybe. Yeah, we have to see about that. Now we come to a more open road. We can also soon get you some acceleration in motorway. And now acceleration motorway, CLA 250 plus 42. 100. Oh, have you noticed? So there was like here, like 40 to 110. And did you feel that? So about like at 100, there was the shift from the second gear.
Yeah.
That is for the, I mean, it's not that smooth in the acceleration then, but overall it is more efficient because then at higher motorway speeds, you are in the second gear, you're more efficient on the motorway. And of course, when you then accelerate from here is also good, you know. You can also set the cruise control. Here so far, still capacitive. You know, if you've seen the CLA shooting brake review, there will be the new non-capacitive buttons coming up soon as well again. And here 110 kilometers an hour on the motorway with the cruise control. And here also how the car is kept in a lane that is done in a very, very smooth way. So they're really good as for the whole sophistication of the assistance systems. There's also an automatic lane change available here. The car did it all by itself. I just put it in here. Also go back to the normal comfort mode here, for example. Acceleration was quite good. CLA 250 plus will be sufficient in most cases. Also when I change it a little bit more quickly, suspension is stiff enough that the car is not shaking up or something like that. So that is very well done. It's a lot of fun to drive the car, definitely. At 110 kilometers an hour, I would say wind noise are absolutely fine. Maybe a little bit rolling noise from underneath. That's, for example, where Mercedes E-Class would be still more silent. But the insulation from the windows, good impression here so far. And it is notable that the side mirrors are pretty small and you don't see too much in it. It's okay. But it's good that you have the blind spot monitor. There's a red triangle there in the side mirror. And when I also hit the turning indicator and there's someone next to me, then I also get an acoustic warning. That's another good safety mechanism. A lot of fun to drive it here, also in some S-Bends and so on. As I said, the assistance systems are doing it in a very, very smooth way. Good application. I think Mercedes and BMW have the smoothest applications in that respect here at the moment. Yeah, when the asphalt is kind of rough, then you have some rolling noise from underneath. But overall, still is a silent atmosphere. At a later stage, maybe we can test like really, really high speed on the German Autobahn then again. But it does it very well also on the motorway here, at least the Danish motorways, where you can test the speeds that are allowed here at the moment. When there are some waves, then you feel that even the base suspension here is set up very, very nicely. It's just when there are some fierce potholes, then you do feel it's just the base suspension with no adaptive function. 18-inch wheels, probably a good compromise between the looks on the outside and still enough comfort, also when being on the motorway. And here again, quicker lane change, a lot of fun. Are you feeling all right as well doing that? So no getting sick as a passenger or something. That's always a good sign. So it is also not only a good city, but also a good motorway vehicle, definitely. Only thing maybe, I mean, these are the sport seats. Maybe at a later stage we can test the comfort seats for a longer period of time. I feel the seats are fine, but they could maybe be more comfortable for longer journeys for tall people. That's at least what I feel. You know, maybe it's not a thing when you're a little bit smaller or something like that, but can just state in my first impressions. Here again, I can easily set the cruise control again. Looking forward to have a version and once again with the special new wheels there on the steering wheel. That's pretty cool to have it, definitely. Yeah, but I'm enjoying it here. 110 kilometers an hour is silent enough. We can also go a longer way, and since we can at least do this test here 110 kilometers an hour on the motorway, we can also give you a first glimpse of a more realistic real-world range very soon in here with the all-new CLA. But definitely all driving things concerned, very good, sophisticated feeling. So it drives very well in every sense. Don't really negatively feel the weight of the electric vehicle. Still, of course, looking forward to how the petrol engine will drive, which we can then deliver to you at a later stage. So is it the efficiency king? Well, so far today, kinda is, because good temperatures here, not too cold, and also the speeds not too high. And our test mainly is based on 110 kilometers an hour motorway, so like 65 miles an hour. And then, around 20 degrees Celsius, a little bit less maybe, so around like high 60s, low 70s degrees Fahrenheit. So pretty good conditions for the EV, definitely. And when you go this 110 kilometers an hour on the motorway cruise control, it consumes about 14 kilowatt hours on 100 kilometers, which is 4.4 miles per kilowatt hour. Means that this would be, together with the big battery pack, a real-world range of around 600 kilometers or 370 miles. Pretty good. But of course we have to test it when it's a little bit colder, heat pepper standard, and also when we go higher speeds on German motorway. But there are a lot of countries where the motorway speed is 110 or something like that, or maybe even lower, especially in the Scandinavian countries, and then it definitely makes sense. So yeah, it's not too large, it's really aero efficient, especially if you configure it the very right way, and then it really makes sense as an efficiency king that you don't need the biggest battery, you don't need the biggest EV, yet you can always score a really, really good range. And then if you want to do a fast charging, is also possible. Yeah, with the option of 22 kilowatt AC and the later option of 400 volt charging as well. It's maybe something we can definitely discuss. also looking forward to drive the mild hybrid petrol engine for you very soon and see how that one then performs. And the question is about the price. Well, the petrol version and the small battery LFP will start around 46,000 euros something. The shooting brake will probably be 650 euros, so less than 1,000 euros extra. If you go for the big battery, about 10,000 euros extra, so like 56,000 euros. And then if you go full spec, big battery, all-wheel drive version 350, you can do some 75,000 euros. The UK pound prices are like minus 10,000. Then you have approximately the pound price from the Euro prices I just mentioned. And there will also be then the US launch at a later stage for Northern America, where they will not bring the shooting brake, but here also the sedan, the shooting brake predominantly for European markets, plus some other markets worldwide as well. But the most mainstream car will then be the sedan, which is really sold worldwide. So very promising. To me, the catch is a little bit, could be better seating comfort and the space on the inside. That's the catch. You have great ergonomics, but then considering the size of the car, you don't have too much space for tall people on the inside. That's maybe the major downside of this car. Other than that, it's a very, very new, promising competitor here in this EV segment. And yeah, somewhat one of the new heroes of the German automotive industry. What do you think? Tell me in the comments. Now tune in to the shooting brake if you haven't seen it so far. Or do you want to check out the iX3 from BMW?